Hi and welcome to the 6th stage of this year's Tour de France. Today the Tour de France will bring the riders from Dinan to Lisieux. The stage is 226.5 kilometers long and includes a lot of tough hills. My name is Dick Henderson, and as always by my side our expert commentator Jim Jones. And as always we got some recap footage from the action earlier today. And as always there was a breakaway, including that breakaway was Julian Alvarez from Cofidis, Bodnar from Liquigas, Coyote from Sayasun, Thomas de Gent from Vacan Soleil, and Ruben Perez Moreno from Euskaltel. And on the first climb of the day it was Julian Alvarez who captured 2 points in the King of the Mountain jersey contest. Then it was time for the intermediate sprint, and it was Thomas de Gent from Vacan Soleil in front of Julian Alvarez and Ruben Perez Moreno. And when it was time for the peloton to hit the intermediate sprint, it was a pretty controversial sprint. It was a lot of blocks from the peloton, but Leonardo Duque from Cofidis captured 10 points, Mark Cavendish got 8th, Petacchi and Ferrer got 3 and 2. Then it was time for the last mountain sprint before we go live, and it was Thomas de Gent from Vacan Soleil in front of Ruben Perez Moreno, who captured 2 and 1 point. Then it's time to end our recap footage and tune in live on today's stage of the Tour de France. Hi and welcome back. The breakaway got 3 minutes and 33 seconds down to the peloton, and they got 40 kilometers left. And Jim, now we are getting closer and closer to the second week and the Pyrenees. So let's talk a little bit about the general classification. Who do you think will be the top contenders for this year's general classification?
Well, Andy Schleck, of course, is focused for this race, and let's say Alberto Contador. Even though he rode Giro d'Italia, I think he'll be up there. Samuel Sanchez, Ivan Basso, Cadel Evans, and Bradley Wiggins, and maybe Jürgen van der Broek.
Yeah, so the old stallion, if I can say, Alexander Vinokourov, do you think he can have a chance to get on a podium on his last Tour de France?
Not a podium place, but top 10 for sure.
Okay. So you just heard Jim Jones' predictions, so let's hear a little bit about Sporting Nelson's thoughts on this issue. Here you go.
So let's move on to the general classification. It's do you think there will be Schleck versus Contador this year?
It's hard to imagine anything different.
So they are kind of on a level of their own, and then the other guys have to fight for the last podium place?
That's what I expect, yeah.
So who is going to take the third spot?
Now it's a tricky one, because I would have taken a guess at guessing, but now he seems to be might be a bit injured, a bit unsure. So I think it'll be close, because it's Evans, Basso, Sanchez, Wiggins.
Wiggins, yeah. Do you think he got a chance to take the third spot?
Too many mountains.
Yeah.
I think top 10 is his best hope.
So that was Sporting Nelson's short but pretty accurate review. And as you can see, Thomas de Gent has broke away from the other 4 riders, and he is riding alone now. And he will of course be the first over the last mountain sprint of the day. And I think that will mean that he is in the polka dot jersey after this stage, if I'm not incorrect, Jim.
I think he's got the same amount of points as Julian Alvarez. But I think he'll end up with a polka dot jersey. So
yeah.
He's better placed in the general classification.
Yes, he is. And as we can see, the breakaway group is splitting up and the peloton is closing in. So as we are getting closer and closer to the finish line, Jim, who will win this stage?
Well, I think this will be a stage for the sprinters, really. Petacchi, Hushovd, Cavendish, Ferrer, Edvard Bosenhagen, and perhaps Rojas will fight for the victory.
Yeah, Rojas is a good pick, because the last hill up to the finish is quite steep. As we can see that Ruben Perez Moreno from Euskaltel is trying to chase down Thomas de Gent, who is in the lead at the moment. But 42 seconds, Jim, not so good really.
No, and you can see it's 20 kilometers left, and the peloton it's they're not far off. So
yeah, they can see him now, so he's done. Thomas de Gent, he's been in the break on the entire stage, so I don't think he will survive either. As we can see that Petacci, Royaskill, Edvald Boasnhagen, Tor Hushovd, and Talafer are getting better placed at the front. And speaking of the devil, here is Sylvain Chavanel, and I also think that Juan Antonio Flecha is attacking just like all the other stages. Do you think that they can hold off today?
Well, they're at least trying, but I think the sprinters teams, they're ready for a sprint stage today, so I don't think they'll have such luck. But
yeah,
let's say maybe.
Yeah, if you don't risk, you can't win. They are already getting a quite gap, I have to say. 30 seconds to the peloton, that's pretty quick and good. Thomas de Gent is 17.4 kilometers away from the finish line, and Sylvain Chavanel and Fletcher are closing him down, so it's now a three-man group in front of the peloton. Do they got a chance now, Jim?
Well, I don't think the Gent will help with much, so I think their chances are still the same.
Yeah, and the peloton are closing down, of course, but the last kilometer here, Jim, as we can see on the screen now, the last hill, is that an advantage for the breakaway, or is it an advantage for the peloton?
Well, I think when the breakaway hit that last climb, they'll be finished, but I think they'll be wheeled in before the climb, really.
Okay, so when we hit the climb, it's the sprinters team that are positioning themselves up front?
Yeah, there will be the sprinters teams up there with the best man.
Yeah, and we can see that just like you predicted, the breakaway are getting caught before the hill.
And they're really close to the finish now. They're hitting the city of Lisieux.
Yeah, they are, and Petacci is in great positioning. He is sitting on the wheel of Mark Cavendish as the peloton is now 5 kilometers away. And it's Garmin Cervelo in control at the front. HTC, we haven't seen so much from them so far, and Fletcher and Sylvain Chavanel are giving it another go. They might hold off to the finish line now. We are in that hill, and Tor Hushovd is closing the gap, but Talafer is unable to sit on his wheel. Petacci is still there, and Andy Schleck are advancing on the right-hand side, and there goes Frankie Schleck from the left-hand side, and there are Garmin Cervelo at control, but there comes Edvald Boasnhagen. It's a Norwegian duel, and it's going to be Edvald Boasnhagen in front of Tor Hushovd, and I think it was Petacci on the third spot. And Jim, what an exciting sprint finish.
Yeah, and Cavendish was leading there for a while. As you can see on if we get the replay picture later on, we can see that Cavendish, he was actually leading for a good while there, and then seemed like he gave up in some sort of way.
Do you think that it was because of the absence of a good lead out? Because they got a good lead out here at this point in the sprint, but then when Fletcher and Sylvain Chavanel goes, it seems like they are kind of burning their legs a little bit too early. As you can see here that Matthew Goss is unable to go, and Mark Renshaw goes, but then he sits down and he's finished. Do you think that ruined the sprint for Cavendish?
Yeah, you can see he opened way too early. So I think a poor lead out today made him end up in third, I think, instead of first place.
Yeah, and we can see that Thomas Vauclair and Sylvain Chavanel got a top 10 finish. That's pretty good for the Frenchies. And Andy Schleck was involved in this sprint. That was quite a surprise, really. And he's still in yellow. Petacci is still in green, I think. So it's been a pleasure to give you the 6th stage of this year's Tour de France from Dinan to Lisieux. It was a Norwegian duel at the end. Edvald Boasnhagen was the strongest in front of Tor Hushovd. In third was Mark Cavendish, and behind him came the green jersey holder Alessandro Petacchi. So on behalf of PCM Norway Productions, I have been Dick Anderson, and alongside me was our expert commentator Jim Jones. Arrivederci!